The ad from Illinois State Senator Mike Jacobs called Reflect makes claims about his Republican opponent Neil Anderson and how he wants to make cuts to Medicaid. We will show you the entire ad first and then break down the claims.
When Tea Party candidate Neil Anderson was asked recently,
"Where are the cuts going to get made?"
Anderson's answer, not waste or tax breaks for millionaires.
Medicaid is probably the biggest one.
Medicaid, healthcare our seniors rely on. Anderson's Tea Party funders want billions in cuts to Medicaid that would take healthcare from children and force seniors out of nursing homes.
Medicaid is probably the biggest one.
Tea Party candidate Neil Anderson, too extreme, in his own words. When Tea Party candidate Neil Anderson was asked recently,
"Where are the cuts going to get made?"
Anderson's answer, not waste or tax breaks for millionaires.
Medicaid is probably the biggest one.
It is true Neil Anderson said this at a forum in 2012, but he was answering a slightly different question.
Those are taxable bodies. Medicaid is probably the biggest one, and we need to reform the pension system.
Topics discussed at the forum included pension reform. Someone in the audience eventually asking where cuts would be made if the temporary income tax signed into law in January 2011 was repealed. Here's a longer version of the back and forth.
That's where the cuts going to get made. Sure. Well, this was imposed in January of 11, and I mean, what have we seen it do since it's been implemented? It hasn't.
Probably say replacement taxes.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't gone to any of the debt, which is the biggest problem in Illinois. We need to bring union, non-union. We need to bring jobs here, because jobs runs our economy. And if we don't do that, we're in bad shape. Look at Caterpillar. The CEO of Caterpillar said, if you bought the land, the building, and the equipment, I still wouldn't build here because of the business environment. We got people leaving, businesses leaving. Those are taxable bodies. Medicaid is probably the biggest one. And we need to reform the pension system.
Medicaid, healthcare our seniors rely on. Anderson's Tea Party funders want billions in cuts to Medicaid that would take healthcare from children and force seniors out of nursing homes.
The ad refers to an article written in May 2012 by Dan Proft, president of Illinois Liberty PAC. The article is more of a commentary, expressing opposition to what he describes as Democrats' non-reform of the state's Medicaid program. It goes on to say, Illinois Liberty PAC will monitor votes of Republican lawmakers, Republican legislators who vote to raise taxes, increase spending, grow the Medicaid rolls, will be targeted for replacement in the 2014 primary election season. The Jacobs campaign says Proft and his PAC have bankrolled Anderson's campaigns. However, records from the Illinois State Board of Elections show neither he nor his PAC have contributed directly to the Anderson campaign or when he ran in 2012. Some of Anderson's campaign contributors do include Citizens for Christine Radonia, Illinois Senate Minority Leader, Citizens for Dale A. Ryder, a Republican state senator, Two-Party System, a political action committee, and the Republican State Senate Campaign Committee. The ad refers to the Senate GOP reality check budget. That budget plan from the Illinois Senate Republican Caucus in March 2011 called for major Medicaid reforms with a targeted reduction in spending of $1.3 billion. However, Democrats also called for a reduction in Medicaid spending. In his budget speech the next year, Governor Quinn said he and his administration were developing a roadmap for Medicaid restructuring and would work with lawmakers to find ways to manage Medicaid spending. A few months later, Governor Quinn signed a bill into law known as the Save Medicaid Access and Resources Together Act that made changes to address the significant spending and liability deficit the medical assistance program budget had. Changes resulted in savings and revenues to the program of $1.6 billion. $1.36 billion of that was from reductions in optional services, eligibility verification, and other efforts. Senator Mike Jacobs voted for the bill.
Medicaid is probably the biggest one.
Tea Party candidate Neil Anderson, too extreme, in his own words.
Our research finds parts of this ad are true, others are misleading. On Sunday, we will be fact-checking an ad from the National Republican Senatorial Committee targeting Congressman Bruce Braley. Bobby Schilling is already challenging Congresswoman Cheri Bustos for her seat in Congress, a seat he once held. And now he's also challenging her to donate $34,800, or 10% of her salary while in Congress, to a veterans charity of her choice.
Well, I think one of the things that's really important for anyone running for an office is that when you make a promise to the people is that you uphold your promise.
The promise he's claiming Bustos made happened during a 2012 interview with the Chicago Tribune, when he says then candidate Bustos was talking about her plan to cut congressional pay by 10% through a vote. When asked if she would cut her pay regardless of how a vote turns out, she said yes, but has failed to do so.
So this is about holding our officials accountable for promises made, and I think it's important that they do that.
The Bustos campaign did not answer our questions about Schilling's challenge or the 2012 interview. Instead, she says Schilling has his own record to answer for, saying while in Congress he voted to give tax breaks to corporations, sending jobs overseas. If he is elected and there was a vote to cut Congress's pay,
any vote that comes to the House floor to cut members of pay, I would definitely support, you betcha.
But would he be willing to give up 10% either way?
No.
Brittany Lewis, WQAD News 8.
I mean, it is all on my shoulders regardless.
For almost 2 months,
My sewer froze up in February, the end of February.
Marion Watnam's sewer line was frozen.
It was a nightmare.
The same thing was true for 8 or 9 of her neighbors. The sewer system was installed a few years ago, a requirement from the city of East Moline for everyone in the neighborhood. The work given to a contractor.
We had inspectors out there before, but it wasn't that they went and measured every one at every spot.
When the pipes first froze, the city pumped out the sewage twice, blaming the problem on the extreme cold.
What they told me is I was on my own, so I could do whatever I had to do to get by. They were not responsible in any way, shape, or form.
36 inches.
Some neighbors didn't buy the city's explanation and measured their pipes, finding they weren't buried deep enough.
See back here?
The city agreed and said they would fix the work by August, but to this day, nothing's been done.
Why has it
Right.
taken so long for it to get done?
Well, we've been working with the contractor. The contractor is doing this for free, in that they're not going to charge the residents, they're not going to charge us to go back and correct these problems. But they want to make sure that they, one, know what the scope of work is. So we've had to work up some plans for that.
The homeowners will also be required to sign a waiver so they can't make any more claims against the city or contractor if something happens in the future.
I think it's ridiculous. I think whoever did the work should stand behind the work.
We're going to go in, we're going to fix it to where the outfall pipes were at a depth of below, at 42 inches or below. That doesn't mean that there could be continued problems with the pipes freezing, because we believe that there is more contributing factors to that other than just the depth of the pipe.
How can those people be reassured that this work will be done right this time?
Well, because we are going to have, the contractor is going to have an inspector out there, we're going to have an inspector out there, and we're going to have city staff out there to make sure that it's at the right depths.
If there was ever a time a person might need their best friend,
My best friend, Dusty Dykema. This was his home.
it might be at a time like this.
I pulled into the wrong street. I had no idea where I was at. I was like, our house is gone.
This pile of debris is Dusty Dykema's home.
It's still not recognizable, honestly.
Dusty is originally from Bettendorf.
He built most of it from the inside himself, and now it's just wiped away.
Jay Foster still calls Bettendorf home. Tuesday, he drove to Washington with some supplies to help his best friend dig through the mess.
It's jaw-dropping. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Just around the corner, Galesburg firefighter Ben Johnson,
This was our front door.
helping his aunt with what is left of her house.
We're mainly clearing out their basement, whatever we can grab that isn't filled with water or isn't damaged already.
His aunt,
Very sad, but happy.
happy because her family is okay, but her photo albums nowhere to be found.
I don't have any pictures. They're all gone. And that makes me sad.
But just as we were saying goodbye to her,
The whole album.
Some of it.
Of
There's Mom and
Mom.
Dad. Look at that.
Oh my golly.
we also found Tammy Miller, originally from East Moline.
It looks like a war zone.
Her home in Washington is okay, so she's helping neighbors.
We take a day at a time and we're all pulling together.
The messages on garages say it all. Many here considering themselves lucky.
I couldn't have got much luckier.
Just look at his baby girl's crib, nearly untouched. And lucky, of course, for his best friend Jay.
And he says how many? I'll make sure we have that many here.
In Washington, Brittany Lewis, WQAD News 8.